Hey there, welcome to LSea Yoga. My name is Laura, and today's class is a very beginner flow class where we're going to be using some props. This class is actually the beginning of a 30-part series that can be done as a 30-day challenge where for a total beginner or someone who's really just reigniting their practice. So today we're going to be using props, and the intention of this class is to get you started with some basics and also learning how to use the props to help you along the way. So if you're ready, get on your mat and I'll meet you there. We'll begin today in seated, as we do for many practices. So when we sit in an opening meditation at the beginning of class or at the end, or even if meditation is our only intention, then usually we'll want to sit up on something, right? A cushion, maybe a blanket, or a sweatshirt, whatever you have around the house. And that's true for all yoga props. They don't have to be official yoga props. They can be whatever you have handy that serves the same purpose. For instance, we'll be using blocks today, and you can use a few books stacked up. It doesn't have to be a block. We'll also be using bolster, but again, a rolled up blanket works just as well, if not better, because it's a little bit more customizable. So if you're gonna go sit up on something, I have this little cushion here, and I like this one because it's filled with it's kind of a bean bag. And that allows you to, again, customize it. When we go to sit up on something, and this is true in seated position where we're sitting upright, or maybe we need a little help with a forward fold and we want a little assist from gravity and also tilt the pelvis forward, because that way we get a nice healthy stretch and we don't pull the back. We want to sit up on something, but we want it kind of in an angle, all right? So this cushion, for instance, you'll make it, a little bit lower in the front, and that puts the pelvis at an angle. And that's what we're going for. If you have a blanket, you can roll up the back. So again, you've got that sort of downward slope. So when you go to sit up on something, and hopefully you have something now, snuggle in and kind of get that forward pelvic tilt. And you'll know that you've got it because it becomes easier to sit straight up, right? The pelvis is sort of just like, it's got you supported. When you're sitting flat on the floor, the lower back may round a little bit, right? And that's when we get hunchy. And so this allows you to sit up straight kind of in an effortless way. The legs can be in a simple cross-legged position, one foot in front of the other, or one tucked in, maybe a half lotus, which is the bottom of one foot kind of turned to the upper thigh, but only do that if the knees are feeling good and healthy. That can tweak the knee, and that you absolutely don't want to do. So don't sit, and this is true for every yoga pose there is, don't do it because you want it to look a certain way. Do it because it feels good. My teacher and mentor, Ian Finn, says yoga is a feeling, not a shape. And so don't contort and bend your body to fit a certain shape that you have in mind. Rather, find the position and the modification that works for you. And that's not because you're a beginner. There are advanced yogis who are injuring themselves on a regular basis because they are trying to fit into a shape. And that's no way to do yoga, because yoga is about how it makes you feel. And if it makes you feel injured, well, then we've sort of lost the purpose, right? So as we begin today in seated, pelvis is slightly tilted forward, spine is long, crown of the head reaching toward the sky, sit bones Reaching away from that. Hands to the knees. Maybe the backs of the hands to the knees so the palms are up. And just close the eyes. Become comfortable. Snuggle into your cushion. And we're just going to begin with an opening meditation, and all we're going to do is focus on the breath. So take a deep breath in through the nose, and then let it out through an open mouth and make a sound. Now, if you're just starting out, you may be uncomfortable with making breathing sounds in a yoga practice, so let's do that again. Inhale through the nose, and exhale out through the mouth. Make a sound. Now let the breath do what it wants. So no need to breathe in any specific way from here on out. And in meditation, the objective is actually not to quiet the mind. The objective is to let thoughts drift away when they rise up. And the way that you can do that is by focusing on the breath. So as you inhale, let the mind think, I'm inhaling. And as you exhale, I'm exhaling. Breath is coming in, and breath is going out. Let the breath be what it wants, so no need to try to control it, just notice it. Breath is coming in, breath is going out. Maybe with each breath, the belly moves. Maybe the chest moves. And without judgment, just notice that. Just bring awareness to that area. Now, as you're breathing, it's the nature of mind to generate thought, so don't fight it. The mind will wander. Even in the most experienced meditators, the mind wanders because that's what it's designed to do. And that's okay. We notice that, and we bring it back to the breath. Breath is coming in. Breath is going out. As I breathe in, my belly moves out. And as I exhale, it moves in. You can also begin to scan the body and notice where you might feel some tension. And breathe into those places and let them relax. So maybe that's the neck and shoulders. Maybe it's the lower back, the hips, maybe the belly. Just let those places relax down. And when I say breathe into somewhere, just imagine it inflating with breath. All right, so let's try the shoulders. Those are usually pretty tense, at least for me. So by breathing into the shoulders, I imagine my shoulder muscles getting broad and big. and letting the air move them. And then as I exhale, those muscles relax down. Breath is coming in. And breath is going out. I'll bring one hand to the belly, one hand to the heart. And we'll set an intention for today. The intention of this practice is just to introduce you to yoga, using props to help in your yoga, but also to be open to finding the yoga that works for you. Not what anyone else thinks it should be, not me, not those pictures in Instagram that look so aspirational for yoga poses, but to find your yoga where it feels good in your muscles and your joints, but most importantly in your mind and in your heart. Meditation and yoga alike teach the mind to have grace under pressure. And that's really what we're mining for. Deep breath in through the nose. Let it out through an open mouth. Let the hands come into prayer in front of the heart. And let the eyes open slowly. And we'll get started. So remove the cushion if you have one. And what we'll begin with today are blocks. So if you have one or two blocks, or maybe books, as I mentioned earlier, or anything else that you find around the house that will be about this size and help hold you up when you need it, right? So it should be relatively stable. And we just put them at the front of the mat on either side. Come on up to stand. And we're going to begin in a forward fold. So hip distance apart for the feet. Right? So each foot is about underneath your hips. Bend the knees and start to fold forward. And you can rest the hands on the knees if that's enough. Maybe the hands come to the shins. Maybe the feet. Maybe they come all the way to the floor. Or maybe here's where you use your blocks. So blocks have 3 height settings, right? So lowest setting is on the broadest side. Medium is on its long edge. And then high is on its shorter edge. So feel free to find the position that works for you. All we're going for here is a stretch in the back of the legs, but we want to do that with a flat back. And that means, as I mentioned earlier, tipping the pelvis forward. And that means that the hip points are coming close to the thighs. That's why our knees are bent, right? That aids that. And then from there, we let the sit bones go up toward the sky, but only to where we can do that. Feel a nice stretch in the back of the leg. And adjust the hand position based on how much more stretch you need. Now you don't have to be using blocks at all here if you don't want to. You could have the hands on the floor, tent the fingertips, or on the shins. But keep that back long. We don't want it to round. Sometimes in a forward fold, we think we just got to stretch the back of the leg so the legs should be straight, and then we end up rounding. And that pulls muscles in the back. It can also strain some of the lower discs of the vertebrae, and we don't want to do that, right? We're going to keep it flat. So here, what you're going for is not the nose on the knee or the shin. It's the top of the head toward the floor, right? Or the toes. So let the head dangle like a ripe coconut. And let that lengthen your spine as the sit bones tip up toward the sky. Knees as bent as they need to be. And just breathe deep into the back body. Into the back of the upper ribs. The backs of the legs. And let each exhale, let the head sink closer to the floor. Knees bent as much as they need to be so that you can keep that back long. And as you breathe, you may notice that the body starts to let you in. And you can straighten the legs a little more, but they don't have to straighten. Now from here, if you're using the blocks, set them over to the side. Bend the knees deeply, and with that flat back, we're going to come up to stand. So rise on up and sweep the hands out to the sides and up overhead. Let the palms come together and then draw the hands in prayer in front of the heart. Now here, just take a moment, close the eyes. Remember that intention. And we'll do a little bit of an easy flow, right? And by easy, I mean take it easy on yourself. So on your next exhale, let your hands come down to the side and you're in mountain pose. Deep breath in and deep breath out. Sweep the arms overhead again. Get tall. Spread the fingertips and reach as high as you can. Find your feet, looking up at the hands or maybe out in front of you. Reach, reach, reach. Let the hands come together, bend the knees, and start to fold forward. You're back in a forward fold. Now, have those blocks handy if you need them, because we're coming into now a half forward fold. So inhale and let the spine come long, straighten the arms. So whether they're on the floor, the shins, the knees, come about halfway up. And then we're going to step back into a lunge with the left foot and lower the knee down to the floor. Now here you can use both blocks as you lift the chest to look forward and let the left hip drop down. We're stretching into the front of the left thigh. Now again, remember those height settings, right? So if we need to be up higher, come on up. If that still feels like too much, you may want to place the hands on the thigh and come all the way up. If the back knee is uncomfortable, a cushion would be great underneath there to help with that. Now from here, use the left block or set of books, and we're going to come into an open twist. So leave that block right there under your left hand and reach the right arm up. And you can do as much of a back bend as you need here. You might want to walk your right foot out to the right a little so the hips can kind of drop in between. And maybe you arch back a little. Couple of breaths. And then come on forward. Now we're going to scoot the hips back, so we're going to leave the back knee where it is and pull the right hip back. Toes up in the front. Start with a bent knee. Inhale to get that long spine, and remember, hip point to the upper thigh, right? And then pull that hip back as you fold. And here we're going for the top of the head toward the toes, not the nose to the shin. So head's going forward, hips are going back. Again here, use those blocks if needed. You can even use a bolster here if it feels like too much, right? Where you can prop the leg on there and get a little support that way. Okay. Choose your own adventure. Always customize. Now here we're breathing into the back of the leg as the crown of the head reaches forward. And remember to soften the jaw. Deep breathing. Now on your next inhale, let's come back forward into a lunge. Lift the back knee up off the earth and step forward back to the front of the mat. Again, same, hand position, using blocks or not. Inhale halfway up, and then exhale, fold it in. Now on your next inhale, come halfway up again and step back into a lunge with your right foot. Lower the knee down. Bring your blocks along with you and let the chest go forward. Drop the hips. Hands can be on the floor if you don't need the blocks, or change the height setting as you need them, or come all the way up with the hands on the thigh. Wherever you are, the right hip is pressing forward. Not only does that give you a better stretch in the front of the hip flexor and the thigh, but you're also protecting the lower back. You'll hear yoga teachers cue curl the tailbone under, and that's very similar to pressing the hip forward, right? So what that does is it raises the pubic bone up, tailbone drops, and that keeps the lower back long and protected. Now from here, we're going to come into that open twist. So blocks or not, go ahead and place the right hand down and lift your left arm up. Don't sink into this bottom shoulder, right? Lift up and away. And you do that by pressing down into the right hand and move the shoulders away from the ears. Breathe into that. Arching back as much as it feels good, or not at all. And then release and come forward. Remove the blocks, lift the back heel, and step to the front of the mat. Inhale, get long, crown of the head reaches forward, and exhaling, fold. Now from here, inhale, one more time, get long. With the blocks out of the way, this time we're coming into a plank. So bend the knees so you can plant the hands and step back 1 foot at a time. And you're in a plank position. Lower the knees and sit back on the heels. Child's pose. Now here in child's pose, you can have the forehead on the earth. This again is where you can use your customizable props of a blanket or a sweatshirt. You may want to rest one palm on top of the other and rest your forehead there. Sometimes in a flow class, you're not going to be in child's pose very long, so no time to necessarily use a prop, but it's good to have it handy, especially if having your forehead on the floor is very uncomfortable. But in a pinch, you could always stack the palms on the floor or stack the fists, and that allows you to rest your forehead a little better. Knees can be together or further apart, depending on what's more comfortable. Also, you can customize your arm position, so hands out in front, or you could bring them next to the hips. Your choice. Now coming forward, lift the hips up, and you're on all fours. Curl the toes under and lift the hips up toward the sky in an upside down V shape. You're in downward dog. So here you're pressing your hands, your fingertips especially, into the mat. Start with bent legs. And from those pressed fingertips, your hips are reaching up and away from that. You work toward straight legs, but they don't have to be straight. And work the heels toward the earth, but they don't have to be on the earth. Deep breaths in downward dog. Now lower the knees to the earth and come through into a seated position. And we'll do a few stretches and we'll call it a day. So here we're coming into Baddha Konasana or butterfly. Soles of the feet together, knees are out to the sides. The feet can be as close to your hips or as far away as feels good. This is a great place for cushions and bolsters if you need them underneath your knees, if they're floating and it doesn't feel good. Now, mine don't touch the ground, but it feels okay. Feels really good. So I don't use any props there, but you absolutely can do that. And maybe one needs it and the other doesn't. That's okay too. So as in seated forward folds, we'll start with our fingertips behind us and get tall. Deep breath in. And as you exhale, start to lean forward. Now, if you feel a nice stretch here, hang out right there. If that's not much, you might want to bring your hands forward. But as you do that, scoot the hips back. So again, you still are aiding that forward pelvic tilt. Now, as you breathe deep, the body will let you in a little bit more with each breath. So here's where patience pays. You can close the eyes and breathe into the hips. Every exhale, deflating the hips a little more. And as you feel that edge, which is where your body stops you, where there's a sensation but it's not painful, that edge will move and you can come forward a little more. Deep breaths. Come back to the breath if you lost it. As you're breathing, let the air come in 3D, right? So your ribs are moving side to side, front to back, and up and down. Get full. And as you exhale, deflate the hips. Now, on your next inhale, walk the hands back up. Bring the knees together, and you may want to windshield wipe the knees a little bit. And then roll down onto your back. Now here we're going to do a couple of recline twists. So draw the knees into the chest. Wrap the hands around the knees. Give them a little squeeze. And from here we're going to drop the knees over to the left as the arms reach out into a T shape to the left and right. So we drop the knees over to the left, and you may want to scoot your hips closer to the center of the mat. And you're in a reclined twist. And from here, look to the right, and you want both your shoulders on the ground. So press your left shoulder into the ground, and that'll help the right come down. If the knees are floating, here's where you want to put a cushion or a blanket underneath. Right? If your shoulder's still coming up, bring the knees higher. And if it's still up, you may want to put a cushion underneath your shoulder, and that way you won't strain the shoulder. Breathe into the hip and the side waist. Just looking for a nice stretch there. No strain. Now, if this isn't much, you may want to change the leg position by wrapping your right leg over the top, either crossing your legs or wrapping it all the way around. And then let the knees drop to the left. Same, using cushions if needed. If the knees are floating and it's not painful, that may be okay. It's your choice. Just breathe into that deep release. Now, if you wrapped the knees, go ahead and unravel them. And on your next inhale, draw the knees up toward the sky, and let's do the same thing the other side. So bring the knees into the chest and then drop them over to the right, maybe scooting the hips as needed. Look left. Adjust your cushions as needed. Maybe wrapping the legs if your body's asking for that. Otherwise, you just keep the knees stacked. A nice alternative, somewhere in between, is to straighten your right leg, bend the left, and just draw it across with your right hand. That's sort of a medium version of the pose. And it may be different on each side, and that's something important to remember in your yoga practice, is that your left side and on any given day may be different from your right. And that's true for all your muscles, all your joints. My left side always tends to be tighter than my right. So I adjust how I practice based on how it feels that day. Now, if you wrapped your legs, unwrap them, and wherever you are, come on back to center, knees up to the sky. Now let the feet come out in front of you toward the front of the mat, legs long, feet about hip distance apart, and hands about a foot away from the hips, palms up. Let the feet flop open, hands flop open. And we'll come into Shavasana, final rest or corpse pose. Now here's where you may want to use blanket or bolster. Sometimes this can be a little uncomfortable on the lower back, and so you may want something under the knees, and that'll release the lower back and help you relax. So find a position that's comfortable. Snuggle the shoulders in, maybe rock the head back and forth to release the neck. Here, let the breath do whatever it wants. And your one job in Shavasana is to let the muscles release down. And all the work is over. You have nowhere to go and nothing to do. Shavasana is where the body begins to integrate what it's learned. So it's really the most important part of practice. So I encourage you never to skip it. Because here is where the real work happens, where we've trained or begun to train our muscles to relax, our joints to expand under pressure. And here in Shavasana, we're letting all that go consciously. So bring your attention to your feet. And let all the little micro muscles in your feet relax. Move up to your calves and your shins and your knees. And as you exhale, all that releases down. The thighs relax, the glutes. The lower back, everything touching the floor. The upper back and shoulders. Let them release into the earth. The backs of the arms, the backs of the hands. Let go of everything you carry all day, every day. The back of the head relaxes deep into the earth. The earth has got you. It's holding you up so you don't have to do anything at all. Now you can stay here as long as you like. When you're ready, we're going to bring the body back into the world. So take a deep breath in through the nose and sigh it out through an open mouth. Begin to bend the knees and place the feet on the floor or bolster if you're using one. And bring the hands to the upper thighs. Maybe move the bolster out of the way. And when you're ready, draw the knees into the chest, give them a little squeeze. And then roll on up to sit. And come into a seated position. Grab the cushion that you used at the beginning. Get it into that nice angle so the pelvis is tilted, the spine is long. Bring the backs of the hands to the knees, palms open, and close the eyes. And we'll do our closing ritual. And that is to sit in a comfortable position and notice how different we feel now than we did at the beginning of class. And we'll close with a little bit of gratitude. So thank yourself for taking the time to get on the mat. Thank your body for allowing you to do so. And thank your breath for leading the way. hands in prayer in front of the heart. Bow the head slightly. If you're just starting your yoga journey, I wish you all the best. Yoga is a skill that we all should learn as children because it helps us self-regulate our emotions and bring us back to the peaceful place that lives inside always. All we need to do is tap into that. Today's practice was very short. We only did a handful of poses, but we did them well. And we'll take that into our next practice and into our day. Namaste and aloha. See you next time.